The little girl said, "I know you, your picture is in Daddy's wallet," leaving him instantly stunned. Ricardo Oliveira woke with the first sunlight streaming through the silk curtains of his room. As he did every Sunday, he prepared for his morning ritual, a run through the tree-lined streets of the exclusive Jardim Europa neighborhood. At 45 years old, Ricardo was the embodiment of success, owning one of the country's leading tech firms, with his fortune measured in millions. Yet, as he laced up his state-of-the-art running shoes, Ricardo felt an emptiness that no amount of money could fill. His mansion, with its 20 suites and Olympic-sized pool, felt cold and empty, its silence his only constant companion. He stepped outside and began running, allowing the rhythm of his footsteps to drown out the thoughts that plagued him. The streets were nearly deserted at that early Sunday morning hour, with only a few gardeners beginning their work on the immaculate lawns of neighboring mansions. Ricardo ran aimlessly, letting his feet guide him through familiar and unfamiliar streets alike. His mind wandered between past memories and present worries. How had he ended up here? He had everything money could buy, but felt lonelier than ever, so absorbed in his thoughts that he nearly missed the childish voice calling out to him, "I know you, your picture is in my dad's wallet." Ricardo stopped abruptly, his heart racing from both the exercise and the surprise. He looked around, searching for the source of the voice. That's when he saw her, a girl of about 7. With brown hair tied in 2 braids and large expressive eyes looking at him with curiosity. Her simple clothes indicated that her family didn't enjoy much luxury. Confused and a bit intrigued, Ricardo crouched to be at eye level with the girl. "What's your name, dear?" he asked with a kind smile. "My name is Beatrice," she replied, returning the smile. "My dad has a picture of you in his wallet. He showed me." Ricardo shivered. Who could this girl's father be, and why would he have a picture of him? His mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. "And who is your dad, Beatrice? Where is he now?" he asked, trying to mask his growing curiosity. "He's at home. We can go there now if you want," said Beatrice casually, taking Ricardo's hand with confidence. For a moment, Ricardo hesitated. It was Sunday morning, and surely Beatrice's father would be resting. Moreover, it would be wise not to follow a stranger's child. But curiosity outweighed caution, and he nodded, allowing Beatrice to lead him. As they walked, Ricardo noticed how the scenery gradually changed. The grand mansions gave way to more modest houses, and then to apartment buildings. Beatrice walked with determination, occasionally greeting passing neighbors. Finally, they arrived at a modest house. A cluster of simple yet well-kept houses led Beatrice to a worn door, which she knocked on firmly. Ricardo held his breath, uncertain of what to expect. The door opened slowly, revealing a thin man with tired eyes and stubble. Ricardo felt as if the air had been knocked out of him. He immediately recognized those eyes, that jawline, those slumped shoulders. It was impossible, yet there he was. "It's you!" Ricardo exclaimed, a mix of surprise, emotion, and a hint of guilt coursing through him. The man's eyes filled with tears as he took a hesitant step forward. "Yes, it's me," he said with a choked voice. "I'm André." Beatrice, observing the tension between them, asked innocently, "Dad, you know him, don't you? He's the man in the picture." "Yes, Beatrice," André replied, trying to control his emotion. "He's my brother." Beatrice looked between them, not fully grasping the complexity of the moment. "Beatrice, why don't you go play while he and I talk?" André suggested, trying to keep his voice calm. The girl nodded and ran into the house. The 2 brothers stood looking at each other while a heavy silence settled between them. It had been nearly 10 years since they last saw each other, and time seemed to have carved a chasm between them. "Come in, please," André said, finally opening the door wider. Ricardo entered the modest home, feeling a wave of memories and emotions threatening to overwhelm him. This unexpected reunion with his brother would mark the beginning of a journey of reconciliation, challenges, and redemption neither of them could have anticipated. The room was small but cozy, with worn but clean furniture. On the walls, Ricardo noticed some family photos, including one of Andre holding a newborn Beatrice. The image struck him with a pang of guilt. He had missed so many important moments in his brother's life. "Please, have a seat," Andre said, gesturing to a sofa. "Would you like something to drink? Coffee?" "Coffee would be great, thank you," Ricardo replied, sitting with some discomfort while Andre headed to the kitchen. Ricardo couldn't help but notice how much his brother had changed. He was no longer the carefree, energetic young man he remembered, but appeared worn out, as if the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. Andre returned with 2 steaming cups of coffee and sat across from Ricardo. For a moment, neither knew what to say. "So, you have a daughter," Ricardo began, breaking the uncomfortable silence. Andre's tired face brightened slightly with a small smile. "Yes, Beatrice. She's 7. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me." "She looks like you," Ricardo commented. "She has your eyes and her mother's temperament," Andre added, his smile fading slightly. "Her mother?" Ricardo left the question hanging, fearing the answer. "She passed away 3 years ago," Andre said quietly, "in a car accident." Ricardo felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. His brother had been through so much, and he had been absent. "I didn't even know. I'm so sorry," Ricardo said, his voice tinged with regret. "How could you know?" Andre replied, a hint of bitterness in his tone. "It's been years since we last spoke." Silence fell between them again, heavy with years of distance and unspoken reproach. "So, how have you been?" Ricardo asked, aware of how awkward the question sounded. Andre let out a humorless laugh. "I've had better days, but Beatrice and I manage." Ricardo nodded, unsure of what else to say. He glanced around the small room, noticing the signs of a modest but dignified life, a stark contrast to his own mansion, filled with luxuries but devoid of warmth. "And you?" Andre asked. "I hear you've become quite the tycoon." Ricardo shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Yes, well, the company has been doing well." "I'm glad for you," Andre said, surprisingly sincere. "Thank you," Ricardo began, unsure of how to continue, whether to apologize, offer help, or try to explain the years lost. Beatrice interrupted, showing a colorful drawing of 3 figures, a man, a girl, and another taller man. "This is you, me, and Daddy," she explained. "Who are we?" "Beatrice, sweetie," Andre began gently. "Uncle Ricardo probably has to leave now. He has a very busy life." Ricardo felt as though he'd been doused with cold water. It was true. He had a busy life with meetings, calls, and important decisions to make. But suddenly none of it seemed as important as the present moment. "Actually," Ricardo surprised himself by saying, "I was wondering if you'd like to join me for breakfast. There's a place nearby that makes delicious waffles." Beatrice jumped with excitement. "Yes, please, Dad, can we go?" Andre looked at his brother with a mixture of surprise and caution. "I don't want to impose." "It's no trouble at all," insisted Ricardo. "Please, I'd like to get to know my niece better." After a moment of hesitation, Andre slowly agreed. "All right, give us a few minutes to get ready." While Andre and Beatrice prepared, Ricardo stayed in the room, examining the photographs on the wall. He saw his brother at various life stages: graduation, marriage, Beatrice's birth, important moments he had missed. Determination grew within him. He couldn't change the past, but perhaps, just perhaps, he could be part of the future. When Andre and Beatrice were ready, Ricardo greeted them with a genuine smile. As they left the house with Beatrice chattering cheerfully between them, Ricardo felt something he hadn't in a long time: hope. The breakfast would be just the beginning, a first step on a path of reconciliation and rediscovery, a path that would lead the Oliveira brothers to confront their past, heal old wounds, and perhaps build a new future together. The chosen spot was a cozy, family-run cafe with wooden tables and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. Beatrice gazed around with wide-eyed wonder, while Andre looked slightly uncomfortable, aware that this wasn't the type of place he usually visited. Seated at a table by the window with steaming plates of waffles before them, the Oliveira siblings sat in an awkward silence, occasionally broken by Beatrice's excited comments about the food. "So, Beatrice," Ricardo began, trying to ease the tension, "what do you enjoy doing?" "I love drawing," the girl replied enthusiastically, "and playing soccer. Daddy taught me." Ricardo glanced at his brother in surprise. "You still play soccer?" Andre shrugged. "Sometimes. It's something Beatrice and I do together on weekends." "I remember when we used to play in the backyard," Ricardo said, a nostalgic smile on his face. "You were better than me." "Still am," Andre joked, and for a moment the tension between them seemed to ease. Beatrice watched them with curiosity. "Daddy, why haven't you told me about Uncle Ricardo before?" Her innocent question landed like a bomb on the table. Andre tensed visibly, while Ricardo looked down at his plate. "It's complicated, sweetie," Andre answered after a pause. "Sometimes adults make mistakes and drift apart, but now we're here," Ricardo interjected, looking at his brother with a mix of guilt and hope. "And I'd like, if your father agrees, for us to get to know each other better." Andre studied his brother for a long moment before slowly nodding. "I suppose we can try." The rest of the breakfast passed in a more relaxed atmosphere, with Beatrice sharing stories about school and her friends. Ricardo listened intently, charmed by his niece's energy and joy. When they finished eating, Ricardo insisted on paying the bill despite Andre's protests. As they left the cafe, they found themselves uncertain about what to do next. "Would you like to take a walk in the park?" Ricardo suggested. "There's one nearby." Beatrice eagerly nodded, and Andre, seeing his daughter's excitement, agreed. As they walked along the park paths with Beatrice running ahead to explore, Ricardo and Andre strolled side by side in a silence filled with unasked questions. Andre finally gathered the courage to address the elephant in the room. "I know it's been years, and things didn't end well between us. But I want you to know I'm sorry. I regret not being there for you, especially after what happened with your wife." Andre kept his gaze fixed on the path for a moment before responding. "It wasn't just your fault, Ricardo. I made mistakes too. My gambling addiction ruined a lot of things. Still, I should have been there. You're my brother." They stopped on a bench, watching Beatrice playing nearby with other children. "How did you overcome it?" Ricardo asked. "The addiction, I mean." Andre sighed. "It wasn't easy," Andre said deeply. "I hit rock bottom several times, but when Mariana got pregnant, I knew I had to change. For her, for the baby. I joined a support group, sought help, and when Beatrice was born, I knew I couldn't turn back." Ricardo nodded, feeling a mix of admiration and regret. "You did it on your own. I should have been there to support you." "I wasn't entirely alone," Andre admitted. "Mariana's parents helped me a lot, especially after the accident. Without them, I don't know what would have happened to Beatrice and me." "I'm glad you had that support," Ricardo said sincerely. "Andre, I know this is a lot to ask, but do you think we could try to rebuild our relationship? I'd like to be part of your life and Beatrice's, if you'll let me." Andre was silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on his daughter, who was laughing while swinging. "It won't be easy, Ricardo. A lot has happened and we've both changed." "I know," Ricardo nodded, "but I'm willing to try and do whatever it takes." "Why now?" Andre asked, turning to look at his brother. "What's changed?" Ricardo thought for a moment before answering honestly. "I'm not sure. Maybe seeing Beatrice made me realize what I've missed. Or perhaps I've finally understood that all the success and money mean nothing if you're alone." Andre seemed to grasp perfectly what his brother meant. "I can't promise anything," he said finally, "but we can try, for Beatrice, if not for us." Ricardo felt a lump in his throat. "Thank you, Andre. I won't let you down this time." At that moment, Beatrice came running back to them, her cheeks flushed from play and excitement. "Daddy, Uncle Ricardo, did you see how high I swung?" "We saw, sweetheart," Andre said, hugging his daughter. "You were flying," Ricardo told Beatrice, who turned to him with bright eyes. "Will you visit us again, Uncle Ricardo?" Ricardo looked at Andre, seeking his approval. When his brother gave a slight nod, he replied, "I'd love to, Beatrice. If your dad agrees, I'd like to see you again soon." "Yes!" Beatrice exclaimed, bouncing with excitement. "Can we come to your house next time, Uncle? Do you have a pool? I've always wanted to swim in one." Ricardo laughed. "Yes, I have a pool, and I'd be delighted if you used it." As they walked back to Andre's house, Ricardo felt a shift within him. The emptiness he had felt for so long began to fill with the warmth of family he had forgotten he had. As they said goodbye, Ricardo hugged Beatrice, and after a moment of hesitation, also embraced Andre. The hug was brief and slightly awkward, but it was filled with unspoken promises. "I'll call you this week," Ricardo said. "Maybe we can arrange that pool visit." Andre nodded. "We'd like that." As Ricardo walked away, occasionally turning to wave at Beatrice, who was enthusiastically waving back, he felt he was leaving behind the lonely man he had been. The emptiness that had defined his morning now seemed to give way to the prospect of reconciliation and redemption. For the first time in years, Ricardo Oliveira felt a flicker of hope. Back at his mansion, he looked at the empty rooms with fresh eyes. No longer did they symbolize his success. Instead, they appeared as spaces that could be filled with laughter and family memories. He headed to his office and retrieved an old photo album, long forgotten in a drawer. The images of his childhood with Andre transported him to simpler times when they were inseparable. He recalled the summers spent playing in their parents' garden, the silly arguments that always ended in laughter, and the promises to always be there for each other. When had they lost that? When had wealth and success overshadowed family? Ricardo closed the album with resolve. While he couldn't alter the past, he could do everything in his power to build a better future, one that included his brother and niece. He picked up his phone and, after a brief pause, dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Mom, it's me, Ricardo." "Yes, I'm fine. Listen, I have something to tell you." The following days were a whirlwind of emotions and preparations. After a heartfelt conversation with his mother about the past and future, Ricardo focused on getting his house ready for Andre and Beatrice's visit on Friday afternoon. Nervously, he waited at the entrance of his mansion. He had hired a cleaning crew to ensure everything was pristine and stocked the fridge with snacks and drinks he thought Beatrice would like. When the taxi arrived, Ricardo's heart raced. Beatrice was the first to step out, her eyes widening as she saw the grand house. "Wow," she exclaimed. "It's like a castle." Andre followed, looking somewhat uneasy in his jeans and casual shirt. Ricardo noted that his brother had made an effort to shave and dress up for the occasion. "Welcome," Ricardo said, trying to sound casual despite his nerves. "I'm glad you could come." "Thank you for the invite," Andre replied, his voice a mix of politeness and discomfort. Beatrice, however, was oblivious to the adult's tension. "Uncle Ricardo, where's the pool? Can we swim now?" Ricardo laughed, grateful for his niece's enthusiasm. "Of course, Beatrice. But first, how about I show you around the house?" As they toured the rooms, Ricardo noticed Andre's mixed reaction. Astonishment mingled with what seemed like sadness. Beatrice was captivated by everything, especially the home theater and the huge kitchen. "I've never seen a house this big," Andre said quietly as they reached Ricardo's office. "Sometimes it's too big," Ricardo admitted, "especially when you're alone." There was an awkward silence until Beatrice once again saved the moment with her excitement. "The pool, Uncle Ricardo? Can we go now?" Ricardo smiled, suggesting, "Why don't you both change? I'll show you where the changing rooms are." As Andre and Beatrice got changed, Ricardo took the opportunity to make a quick call to his assistant, cancelling a meeting he had scheduled for the afternoon. For the first time in years, work could wait. When he stepped out to the pool area, he was greeted by a scene that warmed his heart unexpectedly. Beatrice was in the water, laughing and splashing, while Andre watched from the edge, a genuine smile on his face. "Come on, Uncle Ricardo," Beatrice called. "The water's perfect." Without hesitation, Ricardo shed his shirt and dove into the pool, joining his niece in her fun. Soon, even Andre was encouraged to join in, and for a moment, it felt like the years of separation had never happened. They played and swam until the sun began to set, painting the sky in golden and pink hues. They emerged from the water tired but happy, and Ricardo handed them fluffy towels. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "I thought we could have a barbecue in the garden." "Yes, please," Beatrice exclaimed. "Can I help?" "Of course," Ricardo smiled. "Actually, I'll need all the help I can get. I'm not the best cook." As they prepared the food together, Ricardo found how natural it all felt. Beatrice chatted happily about school and friends. Andre added occasional comments, and Ricardo realized he was enjoying himself more than he had in years. Sitting around the garden table under the night sky with the aroma of fresh food in the air, Ricardo felt he was finally home. "This is nice," Andre said quietly, savoring his burger. "Thanks, Ricardo." "No need to thank me," Ricardo replied. "I've missed this, missed family." A shadow of sadness crossed Andre's face. "I've missed it too." There was a moment of silence, broken only by Beatrice's enthusiastic remarks about the food. Andre spoke up, gathering his courage. "I know it's early, and we have a lot to rebuild, but I'd like to be truly part of your lives, not just occasional visits, but really being present for you and for Beatrice." Andre looked at Ricardo for a long moment, as if assessing his brother's sincerity. "Are you sure? Your life is so different from ours. I don't want you to feel obligated." "I don't feel obligated," Ricardo interrupted. "I feel fulfilled for the first time in a long while." Beatrice, listening with curiosity, chimed in. "Does this mean we'll come over more often? Can I swim in the pool again?" Andre glanced at his daughter and then at Ricardo, a small smile forming on his lips. "I think so, dear, if your uncle agrees." "I'd love that," Ricardo said, feeling a surge of emotion. "In fact, I was thinking maybe you could stay this weekend. I have extra rooms and we could make more plans together." Beatrice jumped with excitement at the idea, and Andre looked thoughtful. After a moment of hesitation, Andre agreed. "All right, we'll stay the night." As Ricardo prepared for bed, he heard laughter coming from the room where Andre and Beatrice were staying. The sound filled the empty corridors of the mansion, bringing life to a space that had been too silent for too long. For the first time in years, he realized he didn't feel alone. The mansion was no longer just a symbol of his success, but a home beginning to be filled with love and warmth. As he lay down, Ricardo made a silent promise to do everything possible to maintain this, to be the brother and uncle Andre and Beatrice deserved. The path to full reconciliation would be long, but he was willing to walk it step by step. With the distant echoes of family laughter lulling him to sleep, Ricardo fell asleep with a smile on his face, dreaming of a future full of possibilities. The weekend flew by in a whirlwind of activities and laughter. Ricardo, Andre and Beatrice visited the local zoo, watched movies in the home theater, and even had a small soccer game in the mansion's spacious garden. To Ricardo's surprise, he found he enjoyed these simple moments more than any of the lavish parties or business events he was used to. On Sunday afternoon, while helping Andre and Beatrice pack their things, Ricardo felt a pang of sadness at how empty the house would be once they left. "It's been a wonderful weekend," he said, trying to keep his tone upbeat, "and surprisingly enjoyable." "Thank you, Ricardo," Beatrice said, her eyes shining as she packed her drawings into her backpack. "Can we come back next weekend?" Ricardo chuckled softly. "I'd love that, Beatrice, but I think that depends on your dad." They both looked at Andre, who seemed to consider the idea for a moment. "Well, we can't come every weekend, but maybe once a month," Andre said. Ricardo's face lit up. That would be perfect. And maybe I could visit you too. I'd like to see where you live and be part of your daily lives. Andre looked surprised by the suggestion but nodded slowly. Sure, that would be nice. As they said their goodbyes at the door, Beatrice gave Ricardo a tight hug. Thank you, Uncle Ricardo. I had so much fun. Then Ricardo turned to his brother. There was a moment of hesitation before they shared a warmer, less awkward hug than the one from the previous week. Take care, Andre, Ricardo said, and please call me if you need anything at all. Andre's eyes were clear with emotion as he replied, I will. Thanks, brother. As he watched the taxi drive away, Ricardo felt a mix of sadness and hope. The house seemed emptier, yes, but also filled with new possibilities. In the following weeks, Ricardo found himself reorganizing his life in ways he had never considered before, starting to delegate more responsibilities. Work, ensuring he had weekends free, even started leaving the office at reasonable times during the week, something that surprised his employees. On a Wednesday afternoon, Ricardo found himself driving to Andre's neighborhood. He had called ahead to make sure it was okay to visit, and now, as he parked in front of the modest house, he felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. Beatrice was the first to greet him, running toward him with her arms wide open. Uncle Ricardo, you came? Ricardo lifted her up, laughing. Of course I did. I promised, didn't I? Andre appeared at the door with a tired but genuine smile on his face. Hello, Ricardo. Welcome. As they entered the house, Ricardo noticed everything with new eyes. The living room, though small, was filled with photos and Beatrice's drawings, and the modest kitchen smelled delicious from something being cooked. I hope you like feijoada, Andre said, a bit embarrassed. It's nothing fancy, but it smells wonderful. Ricardo interrupted him sincerely, much better than any fancy restaurant. During dinner, Ricardo listened intently as Beatrice talked about her school day and Andre mentioned his work. He realized that despite their financial limitations, there was a warmth and love in this house that his mansion had never had. After dinner, while Beatrice did her homework, Ricardo and Andre sat in the small backyard with coffee cups. Andre began, gathering courage. I've been thinking. I'd like to help financially, I mean. Andre looked visibly tense. Ricardo, it's not necessary. We manage fine. I know, Ricardo quickly replied. I don't want to offend. It's just that I have more money than I can spend in my lifetime, and I'd like to use it for something meaningful, for Beatrice's education maybe, or to help you move to a bigger place if you want. Andre paused for a moment, looking at his coffee cup. I appreciate the offer, Ricardo, really, but I don't want our relationship to be based on money. I've made that mistake before with gambling. Ricardo nodded in understanding. Sorry, I didn't mean to imply that. I just want to help, to be a part of your lives. And you are, Andre said, looking at his brother. We don't need your money, Ricardo, just your presence, your time. That's more valuable than any amount of money. Ricardo felt a lump in his throat. Thank you, Andre. That means a lot to me. They sat in silence for a moment, the distant sound of Beatrice humming as she did her homework filling the air. You know, Andre finally said, there is something you could help with if you really want to. Anything, Ricardo replied immediately. The community center in the neighborhood is struggling. They need volunteers and maybe some donations for their after-school programs. I thought maybe with your contacts... Ricardo smiled, feeling a wave of emotion. I'd love to help with that. In fact, why don't we go together tomorrow? Let's see exactly what they need, Andre said, his lips forming a smile. That sounds like a great idea. As Ricardo prepared to leave that night, he felt that something had changed, not only in his relationship with Andre and Beatrice, but within himself. For the first time in years, he felt he had a purpose beyond making money and closing deals. I'll be back tomorrow, he promised, hugging Beatrice and then Andre. We have a community center to help. As he drove back to his mansion, Ricardo realized he no longer saw it as his home. His true home was where his family was, in that small house full of love and laughter. He was determined to be a part of it, no matter the cost. The future, which once seemed lonely and empty, now felt full of possibilities. Ricardo smiled to himself, eager to see what tomorrow would bring. The next morning dawned clear and bright, as if the sky itself wanted to celebrate new beginnings. Ricardo woke up early, more excited than he had been in years for a day of work. Though this was no ordinary workday, today he would be doing something that truly mattered. He arrived at Andre's house just as Andre was saying goodbye to Beatrice for school. The little girl ran up to him, hugging his legs before climbing onto the school bus. "Good morning," Andre greeted, holding a cup of coffee. "Ready to see the community center?" Ricardo nodded enthusiastically. "More than ready. In fact, I did some research last night and found that the center has been struggling for years." Andre sighed as they walked towards Ricardo's car. "Yes, it's a shame. It used to be the heart of the neighborhood, but now we can barely keep the lights on." The community center turned out to be an old building with character located in the heart of the neighborhood. The peeling paint and dirty windows spoke of years of neglect, but Ricardo could see the potential beneath it all. They were greeted by Fernanda, the center's director, a middle-aged woman with a warm smile and tired eyes. "Andre, it's so good to see you," she greeted before turning to Ricardo with curiosity. "Fernanda, this is my brother Ricardo," Andre introduced. "He's interested in helping the center." Fernanda's eyes brightened. "Oh, that's wonderful. God knows we need all the help we can get." As Fernanda showed them around the center, Ricardo made mental notes. The roof needed repairs. The electrical systems were outdated, and most of the equipment was worn out or broken. "What programs do you currently offer?" Ricardo asked. Fernanda sighed. "We used to have many art classes, after-school tutoring, a reading club for seniors, but with budget cuts, we barely managed to keep the after-school program running." Ricardo nodded, his mind already working on possible solutions. What if we could not only restore these programs but also add more? Maybe computer classes, a small community gym? Fernanda and Andre looked at him, hopeful. With a mix of hope and skepticism, Fernanda replied, "That would be a dream." But Ricardo smiled. "I have some contacts who might be interested in a corporate social responsibility project, and I'm prepared to make a substantial personal donation. But beyond that, I want to be actively involved, helping to organize and recruit volunteers." Andre looked at his brother with newfound respect and pride. "Count me in too. I can help with the repairs, and I'm sure many in the neighborhood would be willing to lend a hand." Fernanda seemed on the verge of tears. "I don't know what to say. This could change everything." "Then let's get started," Ricardo said, extending his hand. The following days and weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Ricardo used his connections to secure donations from local businesses, while Andre organized neighborhood volunteer teams for repairs. Ricardo was surprised to find he enjoyed manual work, painting walls and fixing furniture alongside the locals. In the afternoons, he met with Fernanda and a team of volunteers to plan new programs and discuss the center's revival. He watched with pride as Fernanda organized books in the new library and helped younger children with their homework. One Saturday, as Ricardo and Andre took a break from painting a classroom, Andre looked at his brother with a smile. "You know, I never thought I'd see you like this," he said. "Like what?" asked Ricardo, wiping a smudge of paint from his cheek. "Happy," Andre replied genuinely. Ricardo paused, reflecting on his brother's words. "You're right," he said finally. "I haven't been truly happy for years. This feels good. It feels right." Andre nodded, placing a hand on his brother's shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Ricardo. You've changed a lot." Ricardo felt a lump in his throat. "Thank you, Andre. I couldn't have done this without you and Beatrice. You've shown me what really matters in life." The brothers shared a moment of silence, the sounds of laughter and hard work filling the air around them. Finally, after months of hard work and dedication, the big day for the community center's reopening arrived. The once neglected building now gleamed with fresh paint and clean windows. Colorful banners announced the new programs, and an enthusiastic crowd gathered for the grand opening ceremony. Ricardo, Andre, and Beatriz stood beside Fernanda, all wearing community center t-shirts. As Fernanda gave an emotional thank you speech, Ricardo looked around, marveling at what they had achieved together. He saw families gathered, elderly people chatting animatedly, and children running excitedly. He saw hope in the eyes of the people and a new energy in the neighborhood. When it was his turn to speak, Ricardo approached the microphone with humility. It has shown me the true meaning of wealth, which has nothing to do with the money in the bank. He looked at Andre and Beatriz, who were smiling at him with pride. My family brought me here, and you have become my extended family. Thank you for letting me be part of something so special. As the crowd applauded, Ricardo felt his heart fill with a joy he had never experienced before. He knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one filled with purpose and love. The months following the reopening of the community center brought significant changes, not only to the neighborhood, but also to Ricardo's life. The success of the project ignited a passion for community work he had never known he had. One day, while reviewing reports in his office, Ricardo found himself gazing out the window, his thoughts drifting to the community center and the people he had met there. It was then that he made a decision that would alter the course of his life. He called his assistant and requested to schedule a board meeting as soon as possible. When the board convened the next day, Ricardo stunned everyone with his announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "I have led this company for over a decade, achieving great success, and I am proud of what we have built together. However, I believe it is time for a change." The board members exchanged confused looks as Ricardo continued, "I have decided to step down as CEO. I will remain on the board, of course, but I think it's time for someone with new ideas to take over the day-to-day operations." The room erupted in murmurs of surprise and concern. Ricardo raised his hand to calm them. "Don't worry, I've thought this through and have a plan. I propose we promote Carolina to CEO. She has shown exceptional vision and strong leadership as COO, and I believe she is more than ready to take the company to the next level." After hours of discussion and planning, the board finally agreed to the transition plan. Ricardo left the meeting feeling lighter than he had in years. That evening, during the weekly dinner he now shared regularly with Andre and Beatriz, he shared the news. "Are you sure about this?" Andre asked, concern evident in his voice. Ricardo nodded, a serene smile on his face. "More sure than ever. The company will be in good hands, and I think I've found my true calling." "What will you do now?" Beatriz asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Well, little one," Ricardo replied, ruffling his niece's hair, "I think I'm going to dedicate my time to helping more communities like ours, to so many neighborhoods that could benefit from community centers like ours." And so began Ricardo's new adventure. In the following months, he worked tirelessly to establish a foundation dedicated to revitalizing communities across the city. He used his business connections to secure funding and resources, but also made sure to involve local communities in every project. Andre became his right hand in these efforts, bringing his practical experience and deep understanding of community needs. Together, the brothers formed a formidable team, complementing each other's strengths. Beatrice, in turn, became a sort of mascot for the foundation. Her infectious enthusiasm and ability to connect with people of all ages made her a natural ambassador for the cause. One day, while overseeing the construction of a new center in a neighborhood across town, Andre looked at his brother with a mix of pride and astonishment. "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I think you've found your true calling," he said. Ricardo smiled, watching the volunteers work with zeal. "I wouldn't have believed it a year ago either. It's amazing how life can take unexpected turns." Speaking of unexpected turns, Andre said with a mischievous grin, I've noticed you've been spending a lot of time with Fernanda lately. Ricardo felt his cheeks flush slightly. It was true that he and the community center director had developed a close friendship over the past few months. Their shared passion for community work and dedication to making a difference had brought them closer. Well, we've been working together on many projects, Ricardo replied, trying to sound casual. Andre chuckled. Come on, brother. I know you better than that. There's more to it, isn't there? Ricardo sighed, a shy smile forming on his lips. Maybe. It's different from any relationship I've had before. Fernanda is amazing. Her compassion, her strength, she inspires me every day. I'm happy for you, Andre said, placing a hand on his brother's shoulder. You deserve to be happy. As the sun set over the city, Ricardo reflected on how much his life had changed in such a short time. From a solitary, self-centered executive, he had transformed into a man with a purpose, surrounded by family and friends, and possibly on the verge of a new significant relationship. You know, Ricardo said, looking at his brother, I think I'm happier now than I've been in a long time. The brothers shared a smile, their bond stronger than ever. Together, they were building not just community centers, but a legacy of hope and positive change. As they walked back home, Ricardo realized that his life, once defined by financial success and status, was now filled with something much more valuable: purpose, love, and the satisfaction of making a real difference in others' lives. The future, which once seemed lonely and empty, was now brimming with exciting possibilities, and Ricardo was eager to see what the journey ahead held. The relationship between Ricardo and Fernanda blossomed, evolving from a friendship rooted in mutual respect to a deep and mature love. Their bond strengthened through their joint work at the foundation, sharing both challenges and triumphs. One spring afternoon, as they walked through the park near the first community center they had renovated together, Ricardo stopped under a blooming tree. He took Fernanda's hands in his and gazed into her eyes. Fernanda, her voice trembling with emotion, said, "These past few months have been the happiest and most meaningful of my life, and so much of that is because of you." Her eyes sparkled with affection. "Ricardo, you've also brought so much joy into my life. I never thought I'd find someone who shares my passion for helping others the way you do." Ricardo took a deep breath. "Fernanda, you've taught me so much about love, compassion, and the true meaning of wealth. You've brought out the best in me. Will you honor me by marrying me?" Fernanda's eyes welled up with tears of happiness. "Oh, Ricardo, yes, 1,000 times yes." They kissed beneath the blooming tree, sealing their commitment with love and the promise of a shared future dedicated to making the world a better place. The news of their engagement was met with joy by Andre and Beatriz. The small family had grown even closer over time, with Fernanda becoming an integral part of their lives. The wedding was an intimate yet deeply heartfelt celebration held in the garden of the community center where it all began. Surrounded by family, friends, and community members whose lives they had touched, Ricardo and Fernanda pledged their eternal love. Beatrice, radiant in her bridesmaid dress, scattered flower petals, while Andre walked Fernanda down the aisle. The ceremony was a testament to the power of love and community, symbolizing how deeply Ricardo's life had changed in the years that followed. Ricardo and Fernanda continued to expand their work with the foundation, opening more community centers, implementing educational and vocational training programs, and working tirelessly to improve the lives of people in underserved communities. Andre became the foundation's director, overseeing the practical implementation of projects. His experience and connection to the community proved invaluable to the continued success of their mission. Beatriz, who had grown up witnessing the positive impact her family had on the community, decided to follow in her uncle's and father's footsteps. She studied social work at university and joined the foundation after graduating, bringing new ideas and fresh energy to their mission. One day, While celebrating the 10th anniversary of the foundation, Ricardo looked around in awe. He was surrounded by his family, Fernanda, his life partner and collaborator in every sense, André, his brother and best friend, and Beatrice, now a young woman full of passion and determination. Who would have thought that all of this? Is it possible? Ricardo mused aloud. Fernanda gently squeezed his hand. You made this possible, my love. Your bravery to change and your willingness to open your heart, that's what started it all. André nodded in agreement. I remember when you were that cold businessman only focused on numbers. Look at who you've become now. Brother, I'm so proud of you. Beatrice hugged her uncle. You've taught us all the true meaning of wealth, Uncle Ricardo. It's not about the money in the bank, but the impact we can have on others' lives. Ricardo's eyes welled with tears. Thank you all. You've given me more than I could ever express. This family, this purpose, it's more than I ever dreamed of having. As he looked at the celebration's guests, families whose lives had been transformed by his work, dedicated volunteers and community partners, Ricardo realized he had discovered something far more valuable than any financial fortune. He had found the true essence of wealth, family love, the purpose of making a difference, and the satisfaction of leaving a positive legacy in the world. Thus, Ricardo Oliveira, once a solitary man entangled in responsibilities and loneliness, had transformed into someone surrounded by love and purpose, making the world a better place, one community center at a time. His journey had been long and sometimes challenging, but every step had led him to where he was now, at the heart of a family and a community he cherished, living a richer and fuller life than he ever imagined possible. 2 decades had passed since that fateful Sunday when a little girl changed Ricardo Oliveira's life forever. Now, at 65, Ricardo sat on the porch of his modest yet cozy home in the same neighborhood where it all began. Fernanda, his life partner for the past 20 years, was beside him, their hands intertwined as they watched the sunset. Time had left its mark on them both, but their eyes still sparkled with the same passion and love that had brought them together. "What are you thinking about, my love?" Fernanda asked, noticing Ricardo's reflective gaze. He smiled, gently squeezing her hand. "Just how everything has changed, and how lucky I am." At that moment, the sound of children's laughter filled the air. Ricardo and Fernanda looked out at the garden where their 7-year-old granddaughter Sofia played with a group of neighborhood kids. Sofia was Beatrice's daughter, who now led the foundation Ricardo and Fernanda had established years ago. Beatrice had married Lucas, a teacher she met while working at one of the community centers, and together they were raising Sofia with the same values of compassion and service they had learned from their parents and uncles. André, now a man with grey hair but the same warm smile, emerged from the house with a tray of lemonade. "Kids," he called, "come get refreshed." The children ran over to him, thanking him amid laughter as they grabbed their cups. Sofia approached the porch, her cheeks flushed from playing. "Grandpa," she said, looking up at Ricardo with her big, curious eyes, "tell me again how you met Aunt Beatrice." Ricardo chuckled, lifting his granddaughter onto his lap. "You've heard this story 1,000 times already," he said, but Sofia persisted. "I love it, please, Grandpa." Ricardo glanced at Fernanda and André, who both smiled in agreement. He began recounting the story that had changed his life, the tale of a little girl who had recognized him on the street and brought him back to his family. As he spoke, Ricardo marveled at how life had come full circle. Here he was, telling his granddaughter a story that started with a girl her age, the very girl who had been the catalyst for all this happiness. Little Sofia concluded, "Grandpa, I learned that true wealth isn't in money or possessions, but in the people we love and the difference we can make in others' lives." Sofia hugged him tightly. "I love you, Grandpa. When I grow up, I want to be like you and Grandma Fernanda, helping people." Ricardo felt his heart swell with pride and emotion. And you will be, my dear. You have a big heart, just like your mother." At that moment, Beatrice and Lucas arrived, greeting everyone with warm hugs. Beatrice, now a middle-aged woman with the same bright smile from her childhood, sat next to her uncle telling stories. "Uncle Ricardo," she asked with a knowing grin, "doesn't my daughter remind you of someone you knew a long time ago?" Ricardo took Beatrice's hand, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I will never stop thanking you for everything you've done for us and this community," Beatrice said. Ricardo shook his head. "No, Beatrice, I'm the one who should thank you and your father. You showed me the path to a truly rich life." As the family chatted and laughed, sharing stories and memories, Ricardo couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey his life had been. From a solitary, self-centered man, he had become the patriarch of a loving family and a pillar of a thriving community. The community centers, which had started as a personal redemption project, had expanded throughout the city, changing countless lives. The foundation, now led by Beatrice with Lucas's support, continued to grow and adapt to the ever-changing needs of the community. They had added financial education programs, mobile health clinics, and green energy initiatives, always seeking new ways to improve lives. André, though officially retired, remained a constant presence at the centers, his wisdom and experience always valued. He and Ricardo had forged an unbreakable bond over the years, their brotherhood stronger than ever. Fernanda, his life partner, had been with him every step of the way, sharing in the joy and fulfillment of their shared mission. Fernanda, his partner, had been crucial at every step along the way. Her love and support had been Ricardo's anchor during tough times and his joy during the good ones. As the sun set, painting the sky with golden and pink hues, Ricardo looked around with a deep sense of peace and gratitude. His life, once seeming empty and aimless, was now filled with love, purpose, and the satisfaction of making a real difference in the world. "Are you okay, love?" Fernanda asked, noticing Ricardo's distant gaze. He smiled, his eyes shining with tears of happiness. "More than okay, my love. I am at peace, completely." At that moment, as if the universe wanted to underline his words, a gentle breeze blew through the garden, carrying the scent of flowers and the sound of children's laughter. Ricardo closed his eyes, savoring the moment. He thought about the man he had been, the long journey he had taken, and all the lives he had touched along the way. He reflected on little Beatrice, whose innocent question had triggered everything, and on Sophia today, carrying forward the legacy of love and service. With absolute certainty, he knew this was the true meaning of wealth. It wasn't millions in his bank account, nor the titles or power he once flaunted. True wealth was here in this moment, in the love of his family, the gratitude of his community, and the fulfillment of a life well lived. Ricardo Oliveira, once a solitary millionaire, had discovered a treasure far more valuable than any material fortune: love, purpose, and the joy of giving. In the process, he had uncovered the true wealth of the soul. As night gently fell over the neighborhood, the Oliveira family remained united on the porch, sharing stories, laughter, and love. Surrounded by the warmth of his family and the legacy of his work, Ricardo knew he had lived a truly rich life. This was his happy ending, but also a new beginning. For the love and compassion they had sown would continue to blossom, touching lives and changing the world long after they were gone. And so, the story of Ricardo Oliveira, the millionaire who discovered true wealth, came to an end. Yet, his legacy, the impact of his transformation, and the love he had shared would live on in the hearts of all those he had touched.